Hi, everyone. This is your host, Jess James, and I have a special guest today on Resilient and Rowdy. Welcome, Miss Charlotte. Hi, thank you so much for coming on.
No worries. Happy to be
So,
here.
Miss Charlotte, I have been fangirling over you on Instagram for a while, and you are a really talented and precise astrologist, and I'm a huge fan of your natal charts. So, before we get into what I'm talking about, I would love to just get to know a little bit about you. Like,
Oh, whoa, gosh. So what do you want to know? Where should I start? There's a lot.
well, you live in London. That's really cool.
Yeah. So I'm Australian and I'm British. So I've got two passports. I was born in the United Kingdom, and then I was raised in Australia. So I didn't actually live here. I left the UK when I was 4 months old with my mum and dad.
Wow.
My father's British, my mum's Filipino. My mum hated living here because obviously the weather is shit. So but yeah, they moved to Australia where there was opportunities. It was and yeah, I grew up pretty happy in Australia in the sunshine, but I always felt like this is so, it sounds a little bit narcissistic, doesn't it? I felt different, you just don't fit in as a kid and you're awkward. And I just always felt like I needed to be where I was born. That's always a feeling that I've had. And at around my Saturn return, I came back here. Like I lived overseas for a long time. I lived in Shanghai, China, just before the apocalypse happened. And I'm a teacher. I'm a teacher by trade. And I taught for 10 years, 5 of those years in China.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, I had a whole like Virgo midheaven life where I was just had a regular, respectable job, but I always felt a little bit unfulfilled, and I just didn't know what else to do. And after I just decided I'll quit teaching, I'll leave, I'm going to go to London, I'll move to where I was born, I can get my British passport, it's going to be great. And as soon as I came here, my mother died in Australia.
Oh,
And then COVID, just like literally a few weeks after my mom died, COVID hit. So, and then I was separated from my family after the funeral and I couldn't go back. And it was during that time that I started astrology, because I didn't want to go back to teaching. I was burnt out and I wanted something creative and something that I really enjoyed to earn money. And it was as simple as I was in lockdown. I was like, okay, I'll just make an Instagram and I'll make a little website. And next thing you know, people started ordering little readings, like little cheap ones I was doing.
mm-hmm.
And then it just grew from there. And then I met someone that worked for Camden Markets in London. It's this famous market. And I got the opportunity to have a little stall there doing astrological readings. And then eventually it turned into it. I got a cheap rent on a shop because COVID happened and they were doing cheap rent. So I got a place so it just all this tragedy and all this crazy, it just led to me doing this. And I don't know, and I'm very, very lucky. I don't know how, like I work really hard, but I think there's definitely some kind of divine intervention.
So, well, I'm so sorry to hear about your mother passing, and then all the circumstances, including, COVID have definitely made it a very emotional, detrimental time. But I'm so glad that you were able to find a healthy outlet and something that you're passionate about and obviously very talented in. So can you talk to me about like why you like astrology and what is so cool about it?
I have always loved, ever since I was a little girl, loved looking at the sky, and I loved aliens and paranormal. I was one of those kids. Like I couldn't read a Harry Potter novel, but I will go into the CIA files. Like I would, I was I was just one of those kids that's just, I think, quite analytical and a little bit nuts. And what I love about astrology is that I guess the sensible answer is that it gives us, it allows us to organize and understand stuff that doesn't make sense. It gives us a framework. But how I look at astrology is that, we're living in this giant divine computer, and, it's the solar system. And it is the computer that programs us into this world. And you have all these astrological bodies moving around each other. And there's chemical reactions, and there's gravitational stuff, and you know, there's a lot of like things happening, and then within that moment in time your soul was programmed onto this earth. And you take a picture of that and you can see what your program is. So that's how I think of astrology. It's just a program, and you can read the program, and you can use signs and semiotics and numbers to understand who you are and where you fit in and what you have to do.
Ooh, so there's like a little bit of numerology in there as well, which I love that it includes so much kind of ancient knowledge. Honestly, I had no idea that astrology was, you know, even in the Bible, because again, so many religious folks are very quick to turn it down. But like you said, it's really interesting that you can just see that snapshot of when you were born, and other moments, and be able to analyze it and really look deeper, because unfortunately, I've been trying to live a more honest life. And I've met a lot of roadblocks because unfortunately some folks aren't honest with themselves. So I use astrology sometimes to just get the reality of the situation, because someone is so deep in their lies that I can't even communicate. So I'm like, okay, what's really going on here? Is this person worth my time? Like, are we compatible as friends, as, you know, lovers, etc. But for me, what really got me into astrology and especially natal charts was, you know, like I saw it in the magazines as a little girl and I thought that was really cool. But I kind of noticed that the girls and friends of mine who also had similar birthdays or days near mine, like they were also Aries sun. I was like, yeah, we're all similar, but we're also all different. So I was like, there's got to be more to this. So as an adult, I started looking into everything, and it makes more sense. But it is really interesting to kind of, I don't know, I guess like it's almost like it's like a secret that you shouldn't be looking at, but you're just like indulged in. So would you say that there's like healthy ways and unhealthy ways to use astrology? Can we talk about that?
Yeah, especially with this eclipse that happened yesterday.
Ooh, yeah, let's talk about it. I'd love to hear more.
I'm just gonna say it. Like, I don't know how many people are gonna see this, but I'm putting it out there now. Astrologers are doing a lot of damage. Like, not all of them, obviously, and I'm not saying I'm perfect. You know, like I push it out there. Sometimes it's a little tad toxic. Like, we all have our moments, but during this eclipse period, there's just been a lot of fear mongering and especially very young astrologers who are brilliant. I'm not going to deny that they're brilliant. I'm not going to deny that they're talented, but they are really scaring people because to them it's just information. It's like they lack empathy. Like, you're going to put on a public platform predictions about biochemical attacks and shit like that. Like, that is irresponsible. It freaks people out. And also, you're manifesting something that you're potentially manifesting something you don't want to manifest, because words and thoughts turn into things. And that's where I draw the line, because as an astrologer, this is my Virgo midheaven talking, because I believe you should be observers. To put people into a state of anxiety it goes against duty of care. And it's not that we have some kind of governing body or contract or union or whatever that is over our heads telling us what to do. This is about doing good work, and you know, whether or not someone's about to go through a difficult time, it's not about making them fear that. It's about giving them the tools in order to deal with that potential thing, you know, so they can reach their highest good. To make people fear something, they're not going to reach their highest good. Even if you as an astrologer can see something that might be you can see upheaval ahead in someone's life, to scare them is not going to help them at all. And yeah, that's where I don't like the fear mongering. And astrology can be used as a drug like anything else.
Absolutely. And I agree with that. And I'm just seeing, you know, my friends getting into it as well. And I love that. But sometimes I feel like they kind of dive off the deep end. And something that I feel like needs to be acknowledged is that, yes, this is what the situation or the circumstances could potentially hold, but you have the power and the ability to change that. And also free will comes into play. So I think astrology is a really amazing tool, but I think as any activity, hobby, passion, folks can get I don't know how to say it, but not even like too involved, but they just get sucked in into a very unhealthy obsession. And yes, the fear mongering, I'm not a fan of that. Again, like show me where we can, how we can handle that situation. And again, if you're intentionally putting that information out there, especially something like biological warfare, again, free will. That person who could be threatening with biological warfare could change their mind. Now you're like really putting it into the universe that it's going to happen. So you have to be really careful. And I think a lot of folks are just careless when they do get into astrology, and they try, like, because I know you read like charts for celebrities. So like, is it also unethical if you like read someone's chart without them knowing? Like, is that part of the unethical part? Like, where does it get?
Yeah,
Where does it go from helpful to harmful?
Yeah, there is an element of consent. And the thing is with this, celebrities are, unfortunately, that's what they get for that. That's what happens when you get that fame deal, is that your whole life is now public. It's unfortunately public property. And that's where, when it comes to celebrities, I have to be really careful, because I put out the analysis for Johnny and the Amber situation, and I have to be really careful not to feed in the hate. Like, I see her very clearly. I see them, like, when you look at their charts, I see them very clearly for all their light and dark, and you have to be kind. You have to be kind. You can point out, like, for me, as my moral compass is, what it tells me to do is do the right thing. And for me, it's not about hating Amber. It's about understanding her and understanding what their dynamics was, because she's a mentally ill person. And imagine having all your dirty laundry just like aired out and washed in front of the entire public, and the whole world hates you, and you have a child to protect. That's what I'm thinking about her as a human being, an imperfect, horrible human being. We've all got that within us, to be cruel. I'm not going to throw a stone, because sometimes I'm listening back on those, the court are playing the tapes. I'm like, wow, I've said shit like that to people. I've been crazy. I've been, so I'm trying to be as compassionate as I possibly can when it comes to analyzing celebrity charts, rather than paint them as all good and evil. Astrology is about understanding people.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that also, unfortunately, getting that snapshot of someone in that time, who are we to say that Amber can't change? That Amber can't get better, for example, like, using Amber right now. But yeah, I love that astrology can be used as a good tool for reflection, whether that's for yourself or understanding why someone would act or behave or treat someone else a certain way. And I appreciate you understanding your role as an astrologer to not give in to that. So that's something that I really enjoy about your readings, is that it's factual, it's analytical, but you don't, I think some astrologers add their little flair to like entice the drama to make it juicier. And you don't really do that. And I appreciate that. But you're right, because when you are a celebrity or you are in, the public light, you are scrutinized, you're analyzed harshly. And I like that you said that we can use this to understand people, because I mean, astrology and among other things have definitely helped me understand myself. And I think I didn't really believe in it until I looked at my own chart and I was trying to work, like, understand and kind of look back on some of the stuff that I've been through, especially as a child. And that shit was right there. And I was like, I think I had like some mixed feelings. I really wanted it to be a bad dream. But when I looked at the rest of my chart and everything else, I see that it is something that I am able to use in order to help other people. It's just, I don't know. I think I feel very vulnerable about it because I was a child. So, but it needs to be talked about. That's actually like a huge problem right now in today's society. So I'm okay making myself uncomfortable if we can talk about something to help other kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
I can look at your chart if you want. I can have a little peek at it if you want.
oh yeah, sure. I'm a little scared of what you might say, but but
I wouldn't, I'm not here to freak, like I always tell people, because
oh,
I think I'm quite good at it. I'm not here to like freak people out. I'm here to
that's true. That's true. Yeah, for sure. I would love to buy you a coffee if you did. And you have that on your Instagram. So let's talk about that. So on your Instagram, you dive into celebrity natal charts, whether they're living or past, and it is so interesting. I am loving the Marilyn Monroe content. I also just watched her documentary, and oh my gosh, like little
it stays with you. It haunts you. That documentary, and a lot of Marilyn fans are getting, like diehard Marilyn fans are getting so upset because I thought it was really well done, and I thought it was really uncomfortable, and I knew that there'd be people out there because they turn her into this, she's an icon, right? But she was a flawed, abused woman, like, and to deny the darkest parts of herself, to the darkest parts of her, you're not loving her, you're loving her image and her icon. You're not loving the person that just, she wanted someone to love her for everything that she was, all her darkness and light, and people are still not, they don't do that.
yeah,
they don't, they want this like virginal innocent image, you know, that you know, it's not fair on her. And I think to love her for all the darkness would, that is the right thing to do, you know, and to understand her life. And you know, the eclipse was over her midheaven, and all these placements in Taurus on, I've looked at her chart, there's a lot going on, like there's some retribution going on, like for her.
ooh,
Yeah,
okay,
like,
I love to hear that. So
there's
okay,
like there's some like end of cycle stuff going on with her. We now fully can understand her. So
would that kind of tie into how her case was closed, and you know, you can't find her journals, her private diaries? Would you say that eventually she will get justice and this knowledge will be put out, or is it still heavily being suppressed?
I think such an injustice. I think that the people that, well, I was just gonna say the darkest thing because I'm Scorpio rising. I'm like, well, RF, you know, RF is dead. Robert Kennedy's dead. So there we go. But yeah, it's horrible to say.
Right.
So, you know,
have you looked into the Kennedys and the Kennedy curse? Does that come up in astrology, or is that like not?
That family, those men have some karma. Like,
Mm.
they've from what I understand from all this crazy CIA conspiracy documentaries that I've watched, a lot of women that were you know, involved with the Kennedys were bumped off, so yeah, or went missing. So there's some kind of karma with that family.
Oh yikes.
Sure. Yeah.
Oh, well.
JFK was a Gemini.
Okay, so that actually prompts another question. As much as we love to bash on the astrology signs, I learned that you have every sign in your chart, whether it's there or not. You know what I mean? So again, everyone loves to bash on Geminis, but somewhere in your chart, you've got some Gemini in there. So
I love a Gemini. I'm an Aries, so I love a Gemini. They're good fun.
Ooh, yeah, they are. I feel like I've met some, I don't, so how would you describe, you know, someone with a certain astrological sign that isn't really their best self? Like, because I feel like I've met some messy people who are Geminis.
Yeah.
They mean well, but sometimes they are really caught up in their own struggles or endeavors, and it brings out a different side of them.
Yeah, so yeah, that's because if you look at Gemini and what planet it's ruled by, so you know, it's ruled by Mercury, and Mercury is named after the messenger god that could fly between heaven and hell, between he could go through all planes of existence and deliver messages. That's what Mercury Gemini energy is. Not necessarily they're not someone of one mind, right? I wouldn't say they're empathetic. Like it's an intellectual sign.
I think they're very understanding, and that's where unfortunately the two-faced can kind of come in, but it's not. Not always. Always. They're able to see both sides, understand, not necessarily being the devil's advocate, but just again, they can show up good or bad side and kind of logistically analyze everything and kind of like see it for what it is. Unfortunately, in a more kind of like easy way of thinking, you just want to see it as good and bad or real and fake, but it's not always that way. So I think Gemini has really cool talents, but it's just one of those signs that get bashed on.
They're the genius idiot. Like we look at for example, Kanye West, Donald Trump, Boris Johnson, like they're kind of ridiculous, but there's an intelligence about them. Like they're so socially intelligent and so good with the room, and then they'll change themselves according to that room. That's the thing with air signs. They're air, right? You can't bottle it, you can't own it, you can't control it. And a Gemini will shape shift according to what room they're in. And that's why Donald Trump looks so inconsistent, because he's caught lying all the time. He's just playing to the crowd. They're the messenger. They're like, don't shoot me. So they make really good shifty politicians. And Kanye West, people often call him, they either call him a genius or an idiot, and that's Gemini energy. They are the court jester. They're funny and they're witty, and they send messages to people, and they're articulate, and they can flip sides and flip their mind, and they can argue, and they can argue for something they don't even necessarily believe in themselves, and that's where they get tricky, and it's very frustrating. And they change their mind all the time, and they're late. So
just reading them for how it is. I mean, I like it, I appreciate it.
No, I love
but yeah, I think that was something that I recently came into a revelation of, was okay, you have the 12 houses, all the 12 signs are going to be in there. So be gentle when you're throwing shade at a certain sign, because you might have a little bit of them. So personally, I'm an Aries sun, and I had no idea about the rest of, the chart until a few years ago with a Scorpio moon. And which is really ironic, because growing up, I had a few friends that were Scorpio, and I had some falling outs with them, and I was like, oh my God, Scorpios are the worst. I have a Scorpio stellium. So again, just be gentle with your judgments with the sign, because again, you could have a little bit of it. And again, I think it's helped me understand myself and understand people better. But I also like using a little bit of psychology in there. I feel like that's kind of embedded into astrology, which is really cool. But I guess what I want to ask now is like, how would you, as an astrologist, suggest like certain tools or websites to other people who are wanting to get into astrology? Because I feel like there's some applications out there that are just very toxic and negative, and there's been some news about them. They I can't remember the app on the top of my head, but the company came out and said that they would intentionally write certain things in order to like cause emotional distress. And that's where I'm like, no, dude, like this is a good tool. You like manipulating it into that sense is wrong. And then I look like the crazy one to my friends, telling them, hey, don't use that app. Like it's not accurate. It's not. But I mean, I think you and I both can admit that there, like you said earlier, there's astrologists and things out there that give into the fear mongering and negativity, instead of it being like a tool for you to use to integrate and to maybe even make that potentially hard situation better,
Yeah, I'm not going to say many positive things about these apps because well, first of all, you input your birthday, you put your personal information, and then it's on an app and they have that information forever, and it's connected to your phone, which is connected to your bank account, which is connected to your email, to your, it's very personal. And I'm not on these apps, but I've had people show them to me, and it's a bit scary. Some of them are quite accurate, and what you said about, and I read that too, that they'll put out information, they'll give you a message and tell you things like don't go out today, like shit like that, to prevent you from living your best life, and that's not helping people reach their potential. It's making people scared. So yeah, I'm not a fan of apps. I'm a big fan of learning about transits for yourself. I only use one and a half, two websites pretty much to look at my chart and celebrity charts, and that would be astro-charts.com, I believe, and that's where you get all the celebrity charts. That's what I look at. And there's also astro.com, which is it's a German website. It's Astrodienst, it's also known as that. But I find them the most accurate. There are other ones which shall not be named because I don't want to hate any websites, but sometimes the rising signs are off and it just messes up the chart.
Yeah.
So people come to me with these apps, and very often, quite often, not all the time, but people have the wrong rising sign. The app isn't correct.
Yes. Yeah. Small little things can add up into no longer giving you the reading that you need or deserve because it's off, which is something that I was going to say, like birth time. You would be surprised how the difference of 30 minutes can make. So at one point I thought I was born at this time, but really it was this time, and it really shifted things in my chart, which I thought were interesting. But what are some things that stick out to you when you read people's charts or celebrities' charts?
Well, when I look at a celebrity, because we know them for their work, I usually focus on the midheaven, so go back to Marilyn Monroe. She was a Gemini with an Aquarius moon, which is super nerdy and awkward, and kind of like she's a very intelligent woman. But what the world saw her as was this Taurus, like diamonds and sex and money and titties, and like that's how people see her, because that was her midheaven.
Right.
She had her Venus, which rules Taurus, up there as well. So she was known for her beauty and her charm. She wasn't known for intelligence. No one gave a shit about that.
Which is so unfortunate, because I think Marilyn Monroe is a really good example of just how layered people can be, and you don't give them the opportunity to show you that other side. And that's just something that can help you, understand them and fall deeper into love with them, because we are multifaceted human beings. So it is very tragic the way that she was perceived. Honestly, she was very hardworking, but struggled with a lot. And I really admire her, the way that she carried herself, because I've also been through a lot of stuff, and I'm trying to learn how to carry it better. Instead of carrying it like a burden, I want to be able to walk through life like, hey, yeah, that happened and I'm still shining. And I think that's what she was able to do to an extent. She definitely had her struggles with alcohol and drugs and stuff. And I think that was very tragic to see, because again, in one light, you see her very beautiful, talented, radiant, this just beautiful energy. And then you have to acknowledge the other side, which is someone that was deeply flawed, insecure, and just wanted to make sure that no matter what you see that day, that you still love her, you accept her. I think there was definitely that she had this eagerness to want to please everyone. And unfortunately, maybe that kind of was her downfall.
Yeah, she had some, if you look at her chart, and if anyone's listening to this or watching this, if you get up her chart right now, what you observe in her chart, the only solid earth placement that she had was that midheaven and that Chiron, which is the wound and her public image. And she was very, self-conscious about how she was perceived, you know. She's like, I'm just a joke, I'm this, everybody just thinks I'm this dumb blonde. That was her greatest insecurity, but it was also her greatest strength and what she earned money from, and that's what people wanted from her. But that squared off Aquarius moon, like, and the moon represents the home, like it was in Aquarius, which is very detached. It was in the 7th house, which is also very codependent, very airy moon, very airy sun. Her sun in Gemini was in the 11th. So she had these air moons in air houses, and she was always trying to find herself in other people. And if you look down at right at the bottom of her chart, you'll see that there's a heavy Scorpio, icy, Saturn, dark, abusive homes, very exploitative homes. You know, she was shifted around from like orphanages and foster parents, and she was molested, sorry, trigger warning, molested, like when she was I think at 8 or something, like, and it was consistently over many years that she was shuffled around in this foster care system in California. And it was, and then when you match up her chart with all her life events, and like, this makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Even her IC, like, you know, her North Node, she died in bed. Her North Node was in Cancer, which is the home and the bed, right?
Oh.
And it was conjunct Pluto, which is death and regeneration, and that was in her 12th house. So yeah, there's like in her chart, like the Scorpio and Cancer are doing a dance in her chart with her 4th house and her 12th house. Like this Pisces, Scorpio, Cancer, water trine in her chart allows her to live forever. And yeah, it's, oh God, the whole thing, it's just fascinating, her chart, because it's good to see someone who's already lived their life and look and examine their chart with all the evidence in front of you. And every time I look at Marilyn's chart, I'm like, astrology is real. It's so real.
Right. And that's what is a little difficult to, I mean, I don't feel the need to try to prove astrology to anyone. I think, like you said, the proof is in the pudding.
Yeah.
And no denying it. Again, it took me looking at my chart to really be like, what the fuck?
Yeah. And if people don't believe you, because people want to argue, and that's the thing, I get a lot of young girls that come to my business, my shop in Camden, and they're often like really upset, like, no, like people don't accept me because I love this stuff. And I was like, listen, if people do not believe in astrology, that's good, because at some point a few hundred years ago, we can get our heads chopped off because people actually believed in this. We don't want them to. What I'm concerned about is if there is a future where people like us, people that, you know, practice it and love it, if we might get persecuted, you know, that's why I'm not too loud about it, and I'm not into convincing people, because men thinks this is all bullshit, and it's nice to use it against them. not in the dark way, but like
that meme that says that is, okay, men don't believe in astrology because they don't want us to figure out the truth. So I think it's a really good tool to use, especially if, you know, folks aren't being honest. So
it's I've read a few. I love a skeptic. I don't like dickheads, but often I'll read a skeptic's chart just to test my own skills, because the true skill of an astrologer is if they can get a non-believer and make them maybe not believe, but make them go,
oh, okay, maybe
that was interesting. Yeah. I've had that.
Yes. Okay.
And that's all.
Yeah, isn't that such a great moment too? But so there is that emphasis of orbs and what are the other things? What are other things that include in the chart? Orbs and like comets and
asteroids. Yeah.
Asteroids. How do those, you know, kind of come into play? Because those are like the little sprinkles on top, honestly, because you mentioned Chiron. So
yeah, you have like the main planets. There's so many asteroids. There's so many, like not even I fully understand every single one in full. I know the main ones, the fun girly ones, which are great. So yeah, your sun, you know, if you go through each planet or each asteroid represents a part of our psychology. So if you look at the sun is the ego and the outer self, right? It shines, you know, like this is who I am. The moon is how you emotionally process in the home and intimacy, who you are when you finish the day and you're
alone
eating pasta on the couch. Venus is your values and your love language like friendships and love is how you are in those relationships. Mercury represents your mind, like the small mind, like what your intellectual nature, what you find intellectually stimulating. Mars is your dick, it's the phallus, and that is your drive, what kind of sex you like, what motivates you. And Jupiter's where you're lucky, and then the rest of the planets are generational, so they represent more of the generational psychology at the time that you were born, you know, like Pluto and Scorpio. Like, were you born in the 80s?
I was born in 94.
Okay, so you were born, I think, towards the end of the Pluto Scorpio transit.
Mm-hmm.
I think I was born at the beginning, so we
84?
were born. Sorry,
you said you were born in the beginning of Pluto.
I was born in 88.
88. Okay, cool. All right.
Yeah. So that Pluto and Scorpio transit speaks more of a generation than an individual.
Right.
So
yeah.
When people say to me, "Oh, my Saturn's in Aquarius and that means I'm detached," I'm like, "No, bitch."
Right. Like, get to know the planet first, and then.
Yeah. But if we get into asteroids, which a lot of them are named after the goddesses, like the main planets, most of them are male.
Mm-hmm.
You've got like the moon and you've got Venus, but the rest of them are male, which is unfair, you know, I think. But you've got Pallas Athena, which is like the genius, the creative genius strategist. You know, she was Aries or Mars's older sister, and she was like the goddess of war. But she was much smarter than Aries. She withheld a bit, and she's like, is this war fair? What's its purpose? How are we gonna? She was the genius, right? And Aries just is kind of like a dumb jock. Like, and you've got Juno, which represents London, you know. There we go. Oh, I'm moving out of here. Loud. Juno represents long-term commitment. So Venus can tell you about that as well. That's your values, your love language, and all of that. But Juno is is why you hold on. You know, Juno is what you really want in the long term. Juno is Hera, the wife of Jupiter, who gets cheated on a lot, but she stays. So, and then what else is there? I'm missing? There's Vesta. Vesta is Hestia. So I'm doing Greek and Roman here, so I keep changing their names, but there's Hestia or Vesta, and that is what is most sacred. The Vestal virgins that lit the candles at night to keep the city alight and protect it. Like, so wherever Vesta is in your chart, that's what you hold most sacred. What is like very pure to you. And then what's the other one? Is there one I'm missing? There's another one. There's so many. I'm sure someone's thinking of it for me as they watch this.
Is it Chiron?
Chiron, yes, the wounded healer. So that is where you have your most pain, but that is where you have your most power as well, because Chiron, as soon as Chiron got out of his wound and in a way sacrificed himself to help Prometheus, help someone else, like as soon as he forgot about his own pain, that's when he became immortal. He transcended the wound. You are not your wound. It's what you do with it. Getting out of yourself, out of your selfish pain, because pain makes you selfish. You can't help it. You're like, ow, ow. Yeah. And as soon as you get out of that, you go to another plane of existence, and you're like, wow, the pain was all worth it. So Chiron is where you have pain, but where you have a lot of power and healing other people. It involves other people.
That's beautiful. So if people want their chart read or they have any questions, I saw that you have, a list of services. Can you tell me about that? Like, do you enjoy doing that? Like, are there any charts that like stick out to you, or any placements that are like, oh wow, I haven't seen that before, or anything like that, like in your journey of reading charts and doing this work?
Nothing surprises me anymore. I've seen a lot of charts. I have read for people. I would never give out their names. Like, I don't, like, I've read for a lot of different types of people, let me tell you.
Awesome.
But I read the chart of a Jimmy Savile victim. Do you know who Jimmy Savile is?
I don't think so. Not on the top of my head.
Okay, so he's kind of like this country's Epstein.
Oh, ew.
He was like a British TV star. He did lots of children. He did this children's variety show. Like I didn't grow up here watching it, but a lot of the older generations did. And he had a lot of access to children. And he would go around to hospitals. He was kind of just well known for donating so much money to these orphanages and these, you know, like schools for paraplegic kids and like stuff like that, and just being so generous. And he knew all the royals and he knew all the celebrities, and he was just very well connected man and very powerful. And towards the end of his life, I believe he died in 2009 or 2011-ish. It wasn't until the last 2 years of his life that it was actually discovered he was trafficking children. He was just doing a lot of dark, evil stuff with little kids. And there's an ongoing police investigation. And I had one of his victims come to my shop and read his chart. He didn't tell me this. He just I just read his chart and I could see there was some dark stuff. It's very standard. And I think I must have done it well enough for him to just tell me exactly what happened to him with Jimmy Savile. And I could tell he was telling the truth. He brought his wife and his kid was there. We were just like sitting down in my shop having a chat, and it was true. And I remember that haunted me. That I think I was unwell for a few days after that. It was very heavy energy. So yeah, sometimes if you're an astrologer and you keep on with it, you'll eventually come across some very interesting people and some very dark stories, and you've got to be prepared and protect yourself from that, and psychologically prepare yourself. Sometimes as an astrologer, you can see some dark future in someone. Like some like very often I'm just kind of like, okay, you know, I'll read a chart. You can have a happy life. It can turn left, it can turn right, but you know, here's the tools that you need and what you need to understand about your chart to have the best life possible. But sometimes you come across people that have a very, like, you can see they've got a very intense, I'll use that word, intense, you know, future. And you can see it so that they can be, how do I put this into words? Do you want them to suffer for a good reason or a bad reason? Sometimes you can see that in someone's chart, and you always have to turn people towards the light. For example, if I can see in someone's chart that they're going to kill, which is, I have like whatever, I can see that they could be killing someone. Either they could become a murderer or they could become a soldier. If in their future they're going to be committing murder, what is the reason that what do I want them to do? Like what I would want them to go towards their highest self. And I'd rather them, you know, kill in the line of battle for something honorable than to commit murder for something petty or something unhonorable, you know, or dishonorable. So sometimes you can see that you don't know how it's manifesting, because people make choices. Your future, your north node is going to be achieved in either the highest or lowest possible way, the darkest way, the lightest way. And I'm, with my job, I'm always trying to turn people towards that higher self.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
no matter what, you know, I don't want people to you know, knock on the gates of hell, you know.
I think what I've been running into is just people wanting astrology or their chart to be the end all be all. And that's where I'm trying to tell them that it's a tool, and you know, it can help you, but also you have the power in your hands, in your choices. And so that can always be changed. And unfortunately, sometimes astrology can be very cutthroat and can be very harsh. And so if you are struggling with your self-esteem, your self-worth, you're wanting something to define you, astrology can help you find your best way, how to live your best life, with all of your talents and individual aspects. But I've just seen a few people, or not just a few people, but a lot of people just really take the good and the bad and just run with it, instead of analyzing it and deciphering, as well as also considering that the choice is yours. You can give into the good, you can give into the bad. So it, like you said earlier, it's just truly your choice and how you want to manifest that. But you have services. So how can people find you, and what kind of stuff do you do?
Okay, so I need to I need to like package myself better. I said that on the live yesterday, because at the moment people can get an hour with me, and it can be recorded or not recorded.
Okay.
They can also get half an hour with me. It can be recorded or not recorded. Those are so far. That's so far what I offer. Within that hour or half an hour, I can read as many charts as you want.
Wow.
So like if someone's like, oh, can you read my husband's chart? I'm like, well, we got 15 minutes. So yeah, I can. Let's go. You know, like so I'll basically, my brain belongs to that person that's paid for it. And very often I'll go through, like, sometimes like I'm like, do you want more? Like, do you just want you, or do you want to look at your partners or your child? So people have the option to do that so they can get more bang for their buck. I think I need to put that down in my descriptions a bit more. But yeah, if people want an hour with me to talk about their charts, do a synastry, astrocartography, I'm learning so much about that all the time. Yeah, that's they can do that with me.
That's really cool. So with for our listeners that aren't up to speed on that, astrocartography is basically everything lined up on the planet Earth, and living near certain aspects can bring you, good fortune, or this is good, you might meet the love of your life, something like that. So thank you so much, Charlotte, for coming on and letting me pick your brain. And yes, if you guys want a reading or want to check out some of the work that Miss Charlotte has done, which is you're going to love it. I obsess over your profile all the time. She is at Miss Charlotte Astrology, and I will link that below. Check her out. You can buy her coffee. You can get your readings done.
Oh yeah, I do offer another service. You can buy and ask like a question, and I'll send you a voice message over Instagram. So yeah, you just have to send me the receipt and be like, here, I paid you. And I'll be like, what's up?
I love that. Charlotte, you've been amazing. And I think I might need you for a part 2, but for the audience, this is Charlotte, and go check her out on Instagram. She is so talented and obviously so knowledgeable. If you're a little skeptical, check her out. Why not? It wouldn't Boston. Exactly.
I'm such a midheaven Virgo. I'm like, I'm here to work. I'm not here to argue. Like,
there you go.